Hello, everyone, and greetings. Welcome to the first Dhamma Stream podcast. It looks like there's only one of us here, two of us. Lorna, you're here. Do you have the ability to ask a question? Can you type into that box just a little bit lower on your screen? I'd just like to see if you can interact with me. No? Okay, well, again, it looks like there's just you, but we'll have a podcast. Let me just see if there's anyone else that has shown up. Nope. So today's talk is going to be right at the beginning, what the Buddha awakened to, the Four Noble Truths. I know you've heard this before, Lorna, but you're going to hear it again today. So the Buddha awakened to dependent origination, which states from ignorance through 12 observable causative links, all manner of suffering arises. And in his very first teaching, he presented the Four Noble Truths to the five buddies that he had befriended in his search for enlightenment. Let me bring up a chart that shows this. Just give me 1 second to do that. There it is. And so you should see that on the right of your screen. This shows the chain of dependencies from ignorance that eventually leads to all manner of suffering, and that points directly to the Four Noble Truths. So the Four Noble Truths, they're stated differently depending on the context, but generally they can be identified as dukkha occurs, craving establishes, and clinging continues suffering, cessation of suffering is possible, and the Eightfold Path is a path that develops that cessation of suffering. The initial first noble truth, that dukkha occurs, seems almost too simple to be important. But when we look at that and we can deeply understand the nature of dukkha, we can gain the understanding that that really is the problem, the common human problem in life, that we spend our entire lives mostly distracted with chasing after the things that give us pleasure and holding on to the things that do so, and avoiding anything that might give us displeasure or even create boredom in our lives. We always want constant stimulation, and that's due to the effects of a self-referential ego self, that which the Buddha described as anatta. As an individual craving, as individual suffering arises, it's based on our own individual craving for things, craving for experiences, craving for the establishment of a self. And once these things are established and they're very subtle, then we tend to cling to those because we've created an identity to those things that we're attracted to, or that we've created aversion to. The third noble truth, the cessation of suffering is possible, points directly to the impermanent nature of all things. In other words, if once we created a self that was locked in stone, that was permanent, there'd be nothing we could do about it. But because of the impermanent nature of all things, including our own thoughts, we have the ability within each and every one of us to change the experience of our lives and the way that we view ourselves in relation to the world. And the way that we do that is the Eightfold Path. So the Eightfold Path is not something that it's not a path that is an option if we're Dhamma practitioners. If we're going to develop the understanding and wisdom that the Buddha taught, we have to actually engage in the Eightfold Path. And so the Eightfold Path begins with right view. An initial right view is simply the view that I'm lacking in understanding, and in particular, lacking in understanding of four truths. So again, going back to dependent origination, the Buddha found that it was ignorance of these very specific truths that lead to all manner of confusion, delusion, and suffering. And so everything that the Buddha presented in the 45 years of his teaching career was presented in the context of the Four Noble Truths. In other words, to gain an understanding of the true nature of suffering and to fully develop the Eightfold Path to end craving and clinging. He developed the Eightfold Path for a very specific reason too. He recognized upon his awakening the common human problem of conditioned thinking. And he would spend the next 2 weeks pondering whether there was a way to explain his teachings to other human beings in a way that would be useful to him, to them. And so he developed the Eightfold Path specifically for penetrating and overcoming the common human problem of conditioned thinking. Another word for conditioned thinking that's rather common today is confirmation bias, which means that we're biased in seeing the world and our relation to the world in a way that confirms our already formed views. That's conditioned thinking. So this Eightfold Path is there to overcome that confirmation bias, that conditioned thinking, and it's rooted in, or the foundation of the Eightfold Path is in Shamatha-Vipassana meditation. Now, Shamatha-Vipassana meditation is primarily for deepening concentration, and while concentration increases, we're able to support the other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path. And as we continue to integrate the entire Eightfold Path in our lives, we develop the refined mindfulness that allows us to see ourselves in relation to the world in a clear and realistic way. And we abandon the ongoing cause of confusion, delusion, and suffering. We abandon craving and clinging, craving for ideas that would establish a self and clinging to those ideas. And this is a very gentle and direct path. It does take some effort. The 6th factor of the Eightfold Path is right effort, which just informs us that we need to develop a meditation practice within the proper context of the Eightfold Path. And in so doing so, we can gain liberation from all confusion, delusion, and suffering. If you're looking at the chart, near the bottom of the chart, just under dependent origination, it talks about selfing or I-making or conceit. That is the entirety of the problem as far as the Buddha's Dhamma is concerned. We create views of ourselves and we tenaciously cling to those views. That's called I-making or selfing or conceit. Right next to that on a chart is impermanence, and that is an important point. It points to the third noble truth. It points to the whole usefulness of the Eightfold Path, and it points to the importance of being mindful in this moment. Each moment holds the potential to incline our minds towards awakening through developing the Eightfold Path, or to continue ignorance of the Four Noble Truths and continue to create a life that is prone to confusion, delusion, and ongoing suffering. Further to the right of impermanence, you see that choice. We can ignore the Eightfold Path and continue ignorance and wandering in samsara, or we can continue to develop the Eightfold Path, which interrupts that natural tendency towards conditioned thinking and confirmation bias. And it interrupts that ongoing process that's rooted in ignorance that ends in suffering. So looking at the dependent origination chart again, any one of those steps can be recognized and abandoned. And if just one of those steps is abandoned, the whole chain of dependencies falls apart and we gain liberation and freedom. So pointing out the one to the right, just below feeling and craving. So feeling and craving creates ongoing clinging and maintaining. And if we can recognize that and simply let go of that need to cling to ideas and cling to views of self, which maintains an ongoing state of dukkha, a state of confusion, delusion, and suffering, simply by recognizing that one thing, the whole chain of dependencies falls apart, and we achieve liberation and freedom. And I don't mean to be too simplistic. For most people, for most practitioners, it takes quite a bit of effort and determination to reach that point where we can abandon clinging. But it's just to point out that there's a very specific way that suffering arises. This is what the Buddha, the profound understanding that the Buddha awakened to, and then he would spend the next 45 years teaching how to develop understanding of the Four Noble Truths and end the ongoing process of I-making, and so achieve a life of lasting peace and happiness, a life of full maturity, an awakened human being. So that's the end of our Dhamma talk for today. We'll, again, I see it's just, well, there's 2 people on. Hi, Tracy. I don't know if you're able to interact with the screen. If you'd like to, just let me know. Oh, it looks like we lost Tracy. So, Lorna, if you can interact, send me a question if you want. If not, we will we'll have a 20-minute meditation session, and we'll close with metta. So I'll just give you a second to see if you can interact with me or not. Oh, okay. So let's meditate. We'll have a 20-minute meditation session. So gently close your eyes, gently close your mouths. And holding your back straight but not stiff, your ears aligned with your shoulders, nose aligned with your navel, but holding yourself very loosely, very gently, very lovingly. Allow yourselves to settle into this room, settle onto your seat, settle into your body, and settle into your mind. And take a moment to become aware of the sensation of breathing in your body. Just get a feel for what that's like. To be mindful of your breath in your body. And while remaining mindful of your breath in your body, notice that thoughts are flowing. We're conscious beings, thoughts should be flowing. The purpose of Shamatha-Vipassana meditation is to not be distracted by our own thoughts. So when you find that you're caught up in your thinking again, simply acknowledge that and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. Putting aside thoughts as they arise, remaining mindful of our breathing. And we'll meditate for 20 minutes with callbacks every 5 minutes. Putting aside thoughts as they arise, remaining mindful of our breathing. putting aside thoughts as they arise, remaining mindful of our breathing. not following a thought with a thought, remaining mindful of our breathing. If a persistent thought or feeling arises, stay with it for a moment or two, recognize it as impermanent, and return your mindfulness to the sensation of breathing. And we'll meditate for 5 more minutes. Take a moment to notice the quality of your mind. Be at peace with your mind. And when you're ready, you can gently open your eyes. So I like to conclude this first class with the Karaniya Metta Sutta by the Buddha. But just a few announcements. The chart that I had online up before is available, as well as guided Shamatha-Vipassana meditations and metta meditations on crossrivermeditation.com. Our next class will be next Wednesday at 12 Eastern. I hope you can join us then, and we'll finish with the Buddha's words on metta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied. Unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful. Not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing, in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class. Peace.